Now's a good time to remember where the story of tequila started. In 1795, the first tequila distillery was opened by the Cuervo family. And 229 years later, Cuervo is still going strong. Family owned from the start, same family, same land. Now's a good time to enjoy Cuervo, the tequila that invented tequila. Go to Cuervo.com to shop tequila or visit a store near you. Cuervo, now's a good time. Trademarks owned by Becle, SAB The CV. Copyright 2024. Próximo. Jersey City, New Jersey. Please drink responsibly.
Hello and welcome to South Beach Sessions. Look, we've got velvety couches. We brought in bigger star power. This is very exciting. We are celebrating here in Los Angeles 50 years with two comedy institutions that this man has a legendary status at both of them. The Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles, sketch comedy and improv, and Saturday Night Live, both celebrating their 50th anniversary. Saturday Night Live in February with a 3-hour primetime special. So thank you, Chris, for making the time for us.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
I want to probe your biography, but you have to have all the good stories, though. You have worked with so many interesting people in a time in comedy that was so vibrant that I simply don't even know where to begin with asking you about who you've enjoyed working with the most, who you've been awed by when you're in the presence of, because comedy can be hard and improv is so vulnerable.
It's true. I for me at the Groundlings, I would go see shows while I was taking the classes. I moved here on New Year's Eve, going from 91 to 92. Drove out with my buddy Matthew. And by February, based on the advice of some friends, I started taking classes at the Groundlings. And so, I would go see the shows and see the improv shows. So as I moved up and eventually got into the Sunday show and then the main show, I was getting to perform with these people, some of whom I'd been watching, So Michael McDonald was a big standout for me. He just killed me. And then, so get to perform with him in the main stage show and improvise, and that was delightful. But there were so many, obviously, talented
But these
people.
are your formative years. So take me through how it is that how you make the decision to try this without a safety net.
To come to LA and do the whole thing?
To do the whole thing. To choose this as a vocation. Yeah. Because it strikes me as one of the hardest ways to succeed in entertainment.
Yeah.
On your funny and on the expectation of funny.
It is. I had a fortunate path. I started doing plays when I did my first one in 7th grade at Southern Baptist Educational Center. And then halfway through 9th grade, we moved to a suburb of Memphis called Germantown. And I started going to Germantown High School, which, as it turns out, had an extraordinary theater department with an amazing man named Frank Bluestein, who ran it, and Sarah Savell, who ran the music end of things. And also, while I was there, the television studio got put into the high school. So doing plays with Mr. Bluestein, he, after I'd done a few things, and I sort of had a breakthrough with this play called The Diviners, where I felt like, I think I understand what acting is now. I just connected to the character, and he was intending to cast somebody else, this other very talented guy in the program, but he's like, I've got to give it to you. And so after that and a few other plays, I did a play called Greater Tuna with my friend Dan McClary, where we each play like 10 different characters each, and these quick costume changes. And, and that was my first sort of big onstage comedy thing,
Funny's always a part of it. It's not like you're not aspiring necessarily to thespian, or you are, you know what I mean? Like which part of it is calling you? The idea of being theatrical or the idea of being funny?
Theatrical, being an actor. Yeah, that's what I started with. And then, it seemed like, this Greater Tuna thing went well. And I'd always been in my much younger years, been a class clown, wanted to make people laugh and get attention. I don't know how good at it I was.
Your second grade teacher speaks ill of you?
Oh man, she was It's funny you mention her because she at one point stuffed paper in my mouth to keep me from talking. And my parents found out about that, and I did not go to that school the next year.
Well, weren't you always running afoul of specifically her? Like it feels like that particular act was built up of a great deal of resentment. Like that's the last act. That's not the first time you were talking too much.
No. Well, every week she would put marks on the chalkboard, and if you got 3 marks, you got sent to the principal's office. And I think I got sent every week except 1 or 2, which would sometimes involve paddling. And this was a different school. This was called Bethel Baptist. It sometimes would involve a paddling, but often, just stern warnings.
But it was all talking. It was all class clown stuff. It wasn't anything more sinister than that.
No. I mean, I was a little Christian boy, so I was, other than the talking and cutting up and trying to make people laugh, I was kind of down the straight and narrow, But yeah, and then at Germantown, I was doing these plays, and I was trying to decide between computer programming, because I really liked my Apple II Plus computer that I got when I was 11, or the family got. And it'd been Mr. Bluestein, who's still a friend of mine. He said, if you want to do this for real, you could. You got the chops for this. I was like, wow, okay, cool. And he recommended a school that a former student of his had gone to, North Carolina School of the Arts, and I auditioned there and got in and went through there. And while I was there, it seemed that comedy was, in fact, what I excelled at. And so, I remember doing this restoration play called Man of Mode, or Sir Fopling Flutter was the other title. And it was I did really well in it. I felt really at home, and I got some great comments from the dean of the school, Malcolm Morrison at the time. And it just became apparent as I went on that was my strength.
Well, in reading some of the stories about you, especially when you were there and succeeding, you were wearing a mask a couple of different times when you crushed it as you're getting the feedback and validation you need to continue to pursue things. And I thought to myself in reading about that, to ask you, do you like not just actually physically wearing a mask, but what is it that you like about the career that always lets you wear a mask?
Well, it's the transformation, I guess. It's getting to be another person. It's getting to pretend to be this other character, and I'm still sort of trying to fully be myself for myself in my life, not performance-wise, and sort of trying to be free, because I think it comes from my Christian upbringing. I'm always kind of like wagging the finger at myself and like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And part of my work in therapy is to be free to be creative and do these other things. And it's harder to do that solo. If I've got a job and I know what the job is, I know what the script is and this and that, then that's, I can focus on that and try to bring that to life. But the challenge is sort of living my life in a way that I'm not being oppressive to myself.
That is a great goal in therapy, freedom. Just the idea, I know I search for joy in it, and one of the things that I'm always trying to, I've told people before, if I could get one thing out of therapy, it would be I would go easier on myself.
Exactly.
I would be more forgiving with myself.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's a huge part of what I try to do in my work.
But so why, this one is the place I'd like to explore. Why are you like that? Like, why are you that hard on yourself? You put religion on it, religious upbringing as the start.
Well, I was a real believer. I went to Sunday school and church, and my parents were not like over the top, religious fanatics, but they were believers, and they'd grown up in the church, Southern Baptist. And, I guess I'm kind of a literal person. And so I took it very seriously. I pray, I would ask for forgiveness, anytime I did something that I felt like was a sin. And even into college, I would still pray before my meals in the cafeteria. So I think I always felt watched by God, and tried to live in a way that wouldn't piss him off. I mean, I didn't have sex till I was 24 because I feared the wrath of God. That was the one thing that the Bible said, like, flee fornication. So I allowed, I allowed other experiences sexually, but not sex. So I don't know. That's my sort of dime store appraisal of where that wagging, pointing finger comes from.
And how much progress or what kind of tools do you have on getting to something that feels closer to freedom and forgiving? Like what have you gotten from therapy? Because it's one thing to know what the roots of it are, but to leave there, the reason I advocate for therapy is I just tell people, why wouldn't, if you trust somebody, a good therapist, why wouldn't you give that person your vulnerabilities so they can then in turn give you some of the tools so that when you're walking around without that person during the day, you could sort of self-love yourself?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, the way my therapist works, she has never at any point sort of pointed the blame to my religious upbringing. I've talked about it with her, and I think she agrees that like that's a legitimate explanation for why I tend to be like I am. But she's more about, just working in the present and how I live my life, how I sort of experience the world. And I think, I like the idea of having tools. I like the idea of specific things I need to work on. But for her, and I think she's right, it's about just a different way of experiencing my life and a certain level of awareness and a freeing up that has to happen deep inside. That is not that, and yes, I'll catch myself being hard on myself, and I was like, okay, you gotta let that go. But it takes so long. It's so much work, to get to a place where
to go easy on yourself. It takes so much conscious work.
Sorry.
That's all right. It takes so much conscious work to just go easy on yourself.
It does.
Because of the patterns of what you've learned, because of how it is that you've been shaped.
Yeah, it is. And also just to, embrace being with my children and connecting with them and my wife, because it's so easy for me to have all these tasks in my head, these things that need to be accomplished, that need to be happening at some point, house stuff and financial stuff and all those kind of things we have, auditions. But yeah, it's a different approach. For me, it's a radical approach to not be that way and just be like, oh, you know what? Why don't you go sit with Harry and just be with him for a bit, or go sit with Damien, and just.
You would think perhaps, or someone who doesn't know the amount of work that goes into what it is that you do for a living, you would think that the laughter would be a balm that would make everything feel a little lighter than that. But if you're coming from a thespian's approach of I must be perfect, or I must not stumble, I suppose you could get in your own way on just allowing yourself to flow with laughter through a career that seems from over here like it would have been pretty fun the whole time.
It's very true. It's very true. I have this reputation for never having broken on Saturday Night Live. And I think, for better and for worse, maybe.
The Iceman. They called you the Iceman because you're the only person that has the reputation of during a skit, during Cowbell, this is the one guy who's not going to fall apart.
Yeah. I don't think, I'm definitely not the only cast member in the history of Saturday Night Live that didn't break or didn't, tend to break or whatever.
The Iceman. You're the Iceman. No one else is the Iceman. You're the Iceman.
Well,
More Cowbell. You did not break during More Cowbell. Every other actor on the set broke, correct?
It was very hard. It was very hard. Christopher Walken did not break.
Okay. So look at that. You're in good company.
I am in good company. I am. But I just knew, I knew I had to hold it together because otherwise it was,
It's interesting symbolically, though, if you think about the question I just asked you and your answer is some form of, yes, I'm famously rigid here.
Exactly.
I'm not going to let go with laughter because I must do the job correctly.
Exactly.
That will get in the way of joy, I suspect, as well.
It can. And there are definitely parts of me, that thinks, wow, it might have been fun to let myself go a little bit, like Jimmy or Horatio tended to do, or even Will, or Molly or whoever. But I don't know. It was my approach, and I just looked at it like I'm that character. I'm in that moment. It's not funny to them, and it helps sell the sketch better if I don't break. So, yeah.
I don't mean to make you feel bad about it.
No.
Your way of being was something that was clearly fulfilling, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And resulted in success. So you along your path, you realize now you're being saluted in college for what it is that you're doing, and now what does the struggle look like after that to get to career success?
Okay, so after college, I went down to the Alley Theater in Houston. I auditioned down there and got into their apprentice company. And I did that. I think it was a little bit avoidance of like going straight to New York, and trying to, make my way there in the theater. But I thought this is kind of a soft landing right after college, and it was great and it was fun. I was very naive. I thought people are going to see my work in this apprentice company, and they'd be like, okay, we want you in our main stage shows. And it just didn't happen that way. I mean, they didn't really have a company. They had a pool of actors they pulled from, but actors would come from all over, different regional theaters around the country. And that was going to be my path. I was going to be a regional theater actor. But after the Alley, and I didn't get, how dare they not discover my greatness?
But you're aspiring to, if I can make a living for the rest of my life as a regional theater actor, that will represent all of my dreams coming true.
Yeah, I don't know if I had to define quite that clearly. And I think probably somewhere in there, the idea was to get to New York and do plays there. But I thought, this would be a good life, But I left there disenchanted, not anybody there's fault, obviously, except my own. And I went back to my old high school and taught high school for a year. Mr. Bluestein said, do you want to come back and teach? One of the other students had done it. And I was like, yeah, why not? I'll make a little money, not much, but a little money. And
a little older than the kids you're teaching as
exactly,
well.
Yeah.
Feeling like you've failed or feeling like you've gotten a step, stumbled?
I think it was more about feeling a little lost, I don't know that I really thought of it in terms of failure, having stumbled, because I hadn't really given it a go, All I'd done was the Alley, and I'd done a little theater in the summers, but
you knew you didn't want to be a teacher, no? Or you didn't know this yet?
Well, I didn't know it. It was not something I'd ever aspired to, and I found out pretty quickly that it was not for me. I was not ready to be an authority figure. I wasn't good at knowing how to maintain discipline in class, but I loved working with the kids who were involved with the theater and TV programs like I had been when I was there, because they were all serious about it and they were into it and they were doing good work, and Mr. Bluestein still ran the program and Miss Savell. But I realized, like, yeah, I'll do this for the year, but I do not have it in me. It takes a special person to be a teacher. You gotta have a giving soul, and I guess I don't have that in that way. I'm too selfish.
Oh, it's a good thing to know about yourself.
Yeah.
I've learned after a year of this giving. It's not for me.
It's not that way anyway. Not putting myself up there in front of these kids. There was in every class, it would be like a small group who were very into it, and serious about it. Then there was, at the other end of the spectrum, a group of kids who were cut-ups and could care less. And then in the middle, there's the kind of whatevers, So it was just hard to put yourself out there in front of this, room of high school students. It was a mix of 9th to 12th grade kids. And yeah, I just realized, like, what? If I'm going to be an actor, I've got to, give it a shot. I've got to really either go to New York or LA. And I knew some people in LA. I knew some friends from my high school days that had gone out here, and I knew some friends from college. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna move out to LA and give it a go.
Peloton has what you need to keep you on track to your goals, no matter what season of life you're in. Friends, we're all different. We have different schedules. We have different needs. Some of us are injured, recovering from stuff. Some of us are young parents, youngish parents. We just don't have the time. We're at different fitness levels. That's why Peloton's perfect for you. You can challenge yourself anywhere with Peloton's all-access membership. You can work out where you need to, like at home, on your bike, tread, or row, or you can take your favorite classes to go and take them at the gym with the app. No need for a personal trainer. You got Peloton, and Peloton is perfect for mindful moments during the sports season. Your favorite team just lost. You don't know what to do. Hey, guess what? Take a breather. Lay down and take a mindful meditation class on Peloton. Unwind. Forget about it. You know what else you can do with Peloton? Oh, I can't believe we just blew that game. How am I going to sleep? Boom. Peloton has classes for sleeping. Just put it on and fall asleep. Find your push. Find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com.
Your voice is distracting because of how perfect it is. And it was hand-me-down, correct? You've done a lot of voice work. You've done famous voice work that we'll get to in a second. But this was hand-me-down, correct? Because your father was a legendary radio personality, correct? A known radio personality with pipes.
He was, absolutely, in Memphis there at WHBQ. And he had an amazing voice. And after he left the disc jockey world, he had a recording studio with another former disc jockey, Skip Wilkerson, and they called it Wilkerson Parnell Sound Studios. And they did voiceover work themselves, and they produced other people's stuff, other commercials and things. And if they needed the voice of a kid, it would often be my sister or myself doing that. I think I definitely absorbed a lot from him vocally. The interesting thing, maybe, is that I'm adopted. So it wasn't a genetic hand-me-down, but I definitely, I was born with something, and then I think, listening to his voice through my life made a difference.
Yes, so I'd like to talk to you about it if you've dug in on some of the things that are formative about being adopted, because yes, obviously it was hand me down, but because it was around you at all times, not because of anything biological.
Right. I've never met my birth father. I would be surprised if he didn't have something of a voice himself, But yeah, my parents always made it very clear to my sister and me, who was also adopted, that we were adopted. And it was from the angle of they chose us, they really wanted to have children, and they went to the Tennessee Baptist Children's Home, and the social worker they'd been in touch with said, "We have this boy, you want to come see him?" And, I was little. I was like, I don't know, just 6 weeks old or something. And, very luckily, they adopted me, and gave me a wonderful life, and my sister. And so I guess for me, the deep dive on that subject is when I was 25, the laws of the state of Tennessee allow you to seek out your birth parents at that point. So they do a thing where they sort of try to get in touch with them. Sometimes they don't find them, and they just say, okay, we couldn't find them. Here's the information we have on them. They did find them, and my birth mother did not want any contact. The interesting thing was that they sent, I don't know how deliberate it was, but they sent me all the records of the correspondence they'd had with her, which included her a copy of her driver's license. So I kind of knew what she looked like based on this black and white copy. And they got in touch with my birth father, and he said he would be open to contact, and provided his phone number, but to definitely not contact the birth mother. They were not together anymore, and that was illegitimate, And I thought about it many times. I've lost both my dad and my mom now, and my mom passed away in early April. And so I've had the flickering thought, like, well, is now an okay time to try to reach out to him, my birth father? But I don't know. It's. I'm curious about whose genes I got, and where I came from genetically, biologically. But on the other hand, it's like that could be a whole can of worms. It's like, I don't know what this man's life is. I think I found him online. I think, but it's just I've got my wife and my kids. I got my sister. I got my friends. It's like, do I need to open up that? So I've just sort of been. I haven't chosen to make that plunge.
Sounds like you've been wrestling with it though for years.
I have.
That it's something that it's calling you. It would appear, or it's not. It hasn't silenced.
No. It's like, can I live not ever having known that person or those people? So I've sort of toyed with the idea of hiring a private investigator to just find out things about them
instead of
well
finding out by asking questions of your father because you could.
Yes, because even though I'm not a big celebrity, I'm a minor celebrity, and what do I pretend that I'm not? Do they know who I am from that angle? What does that mean? What if they need money? Do they think I have money? I spoke to a friend who was a writer at SNL, and he had sought out his birth parents, and it didn't turn out well for him. I mean, it didn't like ruin his life, but it just was like, he was like, no, I can't go there. So that was a cautionary tale that informed me.
There's fear in it for you because, and forgive me, I'll leave this line of questioning in a second, but when your mother says she doesn't want contact, I don't know how that one lands, and then your father says he's good with it, but how many years removed are we now? I wasn't doing the math of like, you've had that, you've been holding on to the decision of whether to reach out to him for how many years?
I was 25. I'm 57 now.
It's super interesting to hold on to something like that for that long and to wrestle and to still, as we sit here, not feel like you have an answer. And should I do this?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's usually way in the background, so it's only something that comes up in my mind like, oh yeah, there's that thing. Should I do anything about that? Do I want to? Do I care enough to? Will I be okay eventually dying without ever having known who those people were? And I think the answer is yes, because I have my parents, I had my parents, they passed away, and I had a whole life with them, and I couldn't have asked for better parents, so do I need to seek that out? I don't know. It's almost a scientific curiosity in a way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know what kind of there are morsels. I can understand where there would be fear around them, but there will also be just endless curiosities about what was it? Give me some information about how my path could have been different. Just curiosity.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know the basics of how they came together. Like, he was in the Navy, and I don't know how they met exactly, but she got pregnant. He offered to marry her. And then his family advised him not to do that. And I assume she was, a young Baptist woman. And so I think she was based in Nashville, and she went down to the Tennessee Baptist Children's Home, sort of my take is to be out of sight, to have this child, and then sort of, brush it under and carry on with her life. And, and I don't fault her for that. She wasn't planning to get pregnant, I assume. And, and I suspect my life turned out better, I was with parents who really wanted me, and that's, you can't beat that.
Do you think that the reason you chose the professional path you did is because of what your adopted father was doing professionally? You're surrounded by, it's not just the feedback of I'm performing in some of these commercials. He's going home every day, and this is what he does. He's this magical voice who people know.
I'm sure it did. But what he was doing wasn't acting, really. He wasn't doing like animation. He was doing voices for animated characters.
But he's doing performing. He's
definitely performing. And sometimes he would have to do sort of character-y voices, but like he would put on his Southern dialect for certain characters and things. And I'm sure it affected me. I mean, my memory of how I sort of thought, I think I want to do that. It was two things. The first one is questionable. When I was very young, I loved Charlie's Angels. I had a crush on Farrah Fawcett. She was my first celebrity crush. And I remember having the thought process of like, how would one go about being being around beautiful women like that.
Fine reasoning, yes.
It's primitive, but yeah.
It's a calling.
Yeah. And so I thought, if I were an actor, I mean, if I'd been smarter, I thought if I were a director, or producer, but I thought if I were an actor, I might be able to work with women like this. It wasn't until years later, and I got my yearbook at SBC, and I noticed my friend Tiger Hale had done this school play that I was completely unaware was happening. Didn't know anything about it. Or he was in the drama club, I guess was what it was. I thought, I want to do that. I want to be in the drama club. And we had a new teacher, Gay Forbes was her name. She came in to teach English, and she also started doing some plays. So I auditioned for it, and I don't know, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the performing.
Holiday season is here, guys. And are you going to get a lot of shopping done this weekend? Black Friday's coming up, that you need to score some deals. How about you pick up some touchdowns? They're on sale all week at DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings has doorbuster profit boosts and bet one, get one promotions on all types of touchdown bets. Grab some TDs with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're on sale from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DAN to opt in. That's code DAN, D-A-N, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One bonus bet per customer based on amount of initial touchdown bet and expires 168 hours after issuance. One single-use boost per customer that only applies to winnings. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos for additional terms and responsible gaming resources.
Let's talk about then the Saturday Night Live years, because you lasted 8 seasons there on and off, correct?
Yeah.
And what did you learn? It seems like a pressure cooker. It seems like that would be a very easy environment for the laughter to not necessarily feel good, except for those 90 minutes on Saturday night. That it's the week of Saturday Night Live, from everything I've read in oral histories or everything else, will fry every young person who's ever worked there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I was very lucky in that people wanted to put me in their sketches, not a ton, but as it went on, they knew what I could bring to the table. And for me, the biggest struggle was the writing. I had written at the Groundlings with some success, but what I'd written at the Groundlings that I felt the best at were monologues, finding this character and speaking in that character's voice. And then writing scenes was always, which I did at the Groundlings, but it was always more challenging for me. And then when I got to SNL, I found writers that I did like to work with, but I just always was very insecure about my ability to find an idea and write it into a sketch. And I mean, my regret, I guess, about SNL was that I didn't have more confidence, that I wasn't bolder and didn't have the same sort of sense of freedom that I'm still seeking out creatively. Because I feel it was a good SNL experience for the most part. Getting fired was heartbreaking. Thankfully, I got hired back, but it really shook my confidence again. I started to feel like I got my legs under me, and then, oh no, you're gone. Lauren's not bringing you back. And I was like, oh fuck. That's my whole identity was kind of built around the idea that I'm a Saturday Night Live cast member, and I had this big break, and now what do I do? And eventually they brought me back. I heard from Will Ferrell pretty early on that the door wasn't completely shut, and so there was a lot of like, Lauren might be bringing you back, and this and that, and I eventually told my manager at the time, I was like, I don't want to hear about any more of those maybes. I'd love to go back. If they want to bring me back, great. But I've got to settle back to my life in LA. And then, of course, after I'd done that is when they brought me back. But yeah, it was a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs. You could have a good dress rehearsal and then have a lot of pieces get cut and not have a great air show in terms of just your presence on the show, But it was amazing. I mean, it was. I'm talking about my struggles with it, but overall, it was extraordinary.
When I left ESPN, and I'm older, I'm 50 years old, but you're on television as part of a thing, and part of my identity collapsed in that, and there was wounding in not thinking that was going to happen to me because I was an older man. I can understand how that would wreck you. Like, that would be a very hard thing. And then put on top of it whatever it is that comes with, and I don't want to go too much deep on the pop psychology here, but my father had an episode when he was rejected by a boss late in life that triggered some stuff that came from feeling rejected by his own mother. So God knows how it is that if your identity is wrapped up in this thing and then they tell you you're not good enough, what that creates.
Yes. Part of what kept me from sinking too far down was the outpouring of love, support, and surprise from my fellow cast members and some of the writers who just also were blindsided by it. And I knew, because of the way they were reaching out and what was being said, like, that they were sincere. So it made me feel like, I'm not the only one who is completely surprised by this. A lot of other people were too. So that made me feel like, all right, okay, so I'm not wrong to continue believing somewhat in myself. And that helped a lot. That made a big difference,
Well, your peers you're getting the respect and the love of your peers, and they are booing you. That must feel good. But you're still without a job and wondering whether they're going to take you back.
Yeah. And I just thought, well, hopefully I can, get back into the sitcom lane and do that. And I think somebody kindly threw me a job on Friends. I got a guest star part on that. And but yeah. So when I finally heard that they were going to bring me back, I was like, great. I don't want to burn a bridge with Lorne. I want to go back. I wasn't done. I had more to do, and thankfully I got to. Not too many people get to do that.
What do you regard, you've done a lot of stuff, 30 Rock, Rick and Morty, what do you regard as the most fun? Just the thing that you were doing, that while you were doing it was simply the most enjoyable. It doesn't even have to be any of the big ones. It could have been a different time in your life.
Well,
could have been local theater, for all I know.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to, that's a tough one. Doing the Sunday show at the Groundlings was a pretty amazing time, because we're all kind of hungry and we're writing a lot and very creative, and it was just such a fun bunch. I'm still in touch with a number of people from that time. We get together periodically, so that was pretty amazing. My high school time was really fun. It's hard to beat that.
The young stuff. So the stuff when you're still just dreaming, and the business parts of it are not the things that you're thinking about or feeling.
Right. Yeah, it's true. But doing SNL was a lot of fun in a lot of ways. It was amazing. Anchorman was a lot of fun. So yeah, there've been a lot of fun things, and I love that I got to do SNL. I loved being there while I was there. It wasn't easy, but it was fun,
How about Archer?
Yeah, I
140 episodes, 14 seasons.
14 seasons, yeah. I feel so lucky and grateful for that, to have been a part of that for so long. It was a big bummer when it ended, because we thought we had at least a couple more seasons to go. But, we record that separately. We always recorded it separately, as we do Rick and Morty.
Oh, you like the communal stuff?
Well, I do like recording separately. It's much more efficient. I can focus on what I'm doing. But we would get to see each other at Comic-Con and other events and things like that, which I loved, because we like each other, and it was fun to have that. And same with Rick and Morty. But if I had to pick, I prefer doing on camera, just because of being with other people. It's better for me in voiceover to not. And here's what it comes down to: is if you and I are doing voiceover and we've got a script, the script's not going to be memorized because we've got it there to read. So for me, it's like this this thing of like, well, do I just focus on my lines in the script here, or is this other actor expecting me to make eye contact and connect with him this way, physically in the booth? And it's like this, it's too much for my brain. You know?
You like what you feel in the collaboration of creating, right?
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
But I mean that is the sweet spot, is it not? In terms of working with others and enjoying your work. Like obviously you want to feel good about what it is that you've done, but working with people that you like and respect, who can surprise you and then bring out something in you because they know you a little bit, I would think that would be the sweet spot.
Absolutely. And make me laugh, you know.
And Saturday Night Live was that, because Anchorman, I can imagine that you guys were. I can imagine Anchorman just from what was on screen that a lot of stuff was cut because probably people couldn't keep it together the way that they needed to.
Well, yeah, and I mean, also it was just such an embarrassment of riches. I mean, especially, I mean, you know, they made a second movie. They made another movie based on outtakes of that and another ending they shot. But yeah, Will just, I mean, so much incredible stuff coming out of his mouth at the news desk, and then stuff that McKay would throw into everybody, you know, to say, and yeah, that was pretty special.
Who are some of the people you've worked with where you just sort of stand in awe at what it is that's unspooling from their mind?
I mean, Will is the big one. I mean, for sure, just so extraordinary. And I got to see, I didn't get to work with him, but I got to see Phil Hartman do an improv show at the Groundlings. This is after his SNL time. And oh my God, I was just, oh God, you are as brilliant doing scripted stuff. You're as brilliant doing improvised stuff as you are doing scripted stuff. I mean, just amazing. I was just in awe. But I got to work with so many amazing people at SNL, you know, I mean, Molly and Sherry and Catan and Tim Meadows and Daryl and Tracy Morgan, and then all the people who came, you know, Drat. I mean, I'm going to stop naming people because I'm going to miss so many, but oh my God, so many amazing people.
Did you partake in the famous after parties? Were you raging until 5 o'clock in the morning with an out of control life, blowing off steam from, you know, what that work week is like? Because people don't understand what that work week is like, correct? They couldn't possibly understand that.
No, I mean, there are probably some parallel in levels of intensity in other jobs, but yeah, unless you've been there, you can't really know that. And yes, I did go to the after parties. I think I went to every after party, pretty much. I don't know how hard I raged, Dan, but because by that time I had a pretty good sense of what I could take in alcohol wise, and I didn't want to be sick. But I certainly enjoyed myself, and then I for many years I'd also go to the after party, and walk home at 7 a.m. You know, and then as I got further along and I had a girlfriend, and I was like, man, I don't need to go to the after party anymore. You know, so.
You're very responsible. I feel like I could identify you as responsible and meticulous.
I try to be for better and for worse.
and that you care deeply about what it is that you're doing, and so I'm guessing that you probably prepare it to death. That you get great comfort in having the security of, no, I've got very much down what I need to have down, so that what I'm executing is just a lifetime of experience.
I try to. Yeah, I would always get my scripts on Wednesday, on the day the table reads, beforehand, and make sure I read through all the sketches that I was in. Sometimes a writer would have come to me and said, hey, I put you in it's this kind of a thing. And I'd be like, okay. But I always wanted to read them before the table read started, because I don't want to cold read all this, you know? And it helped a lot. And I think people, the writers and other cast members, but realized that I took it seriously, and I was going to try to be as prepared as I could be to deliver their material on Wednesday to the best of my ability, you know, and not just sort of wing it, you know.
But that gets in the way of improv, does it not? Because I would think improv is the freest of the forms, but also scariest, because you don't have the comfort of safety nets, and you're just out there.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, improv was not much of a thing at SNL. You know, improvising did happen, but, you know, basically you have to do a show where the camera knows where to cut. And if somebody improvises something, it's like the camera might not be on you. But yes, this will illustrate what you just said. I I haven't improvised live on stage, I don't think, since I got on Saturday Night Live.
So, yeah, I was thinking of Groundlings and what it is that they did in both sketch comedy and improvisation. So I was thinking that the early parts of your career that you would have access to improv and probably not like it all that much because you couldn't really, that it would be hard to control, right? I'd be scared of improv. I would find it, can I have some crutches, please? Yeah. Some crutches. Give me something so I'm just not out there naked.
Well, the good thing about going through a program like the Groundlings is you do get a lot of tools. You know, you learn how to make an improv work. And so you do know that I can do space work to start it off. Usually there'll be some suggestion from the audience, you know, so you're building the scene on that. There'll be space work. There'll be emotional reactions. There'll be character choices. There'll be what the other actor or actors on stage are giving you. So it's not just in a vacuum once you have sort of that framework to work from. And certainly, you know, it still comes up that there is an expectation to improvise in movies, you know, and I have to always remember I mean, my way of dealing with that is usually to write some material and to try to make sure I've got some alts, you know, to got some things to add if they want it. And there's a good chance they will, because it's probably a comedy and they know I'm a comedy guy. So, you know, I have to try to prepare that way.
I would think that Anchorman had a decent amount of improv.
It did. My whole poop mouth speech, after a certain point, after I came in and said the lines, and then I realized Adam was not cutting. He wasn't yelling cut. And I was like, oh yeah, he wants me to keep going. So that's what came out, the whole disappointment with Ron.
I would think that would be very freeing, though. Like, if you're someone who is in perpetual pursuit of freedom, I would think that there would be some great freedom in being in front of people on a stage where you have learned maximum respect over your life to respect the stage, and also no script, no nothing. I'm going to be free here, free to be my funniest self.
Yeah, and it's true. You're absolutely right. And when I was doing it regularly, I was pretty good at it, you know. And then once I got on SNL, I felt like, oh, there's going to be too much of an expectation if I go back on stage to improvise at the Groundlings, you know. They're going to be like, oh, let's see what this SNL guy can bring. I was too intimidated by it, you know.
Really?
Yeah. And also I felt like I'd gotten rusty because I hadn't done any improv in my time at SNL, really, so.
You didn't say with any degree of remorse when you said it, I don't think I've done improv since I started at SNL, right? Like there wasn't any longing in your voice when you said that, or even discovery, right? Or was there some discovery in the idea of, I haven't used this difficult, heavy tool in a while that's also freeing?
No, I'm fully aware of it. And I guess because I don't feel in shape to do it, it doesn't present itself as this freeing opportunity. Now, I do also have this take on it where, like, as I get older, like, I will just not give as much of a hoot about how it goes or what people think, and I'll just get up there and do it. And to that end, my friend Brian Palermo has done this kids show at the Groundlings periodically over the years, and he called me a couple of weeks ago to see if I would do the show. And it will involve some improv, and it'll involve me writing a sketch. And hopefully my older son will be able to come and see the show because he takes an improv class and he has some aspirations, you know. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to this. It's going to be mostly families with kids out there, so the stakes are pretty low. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Do you want it for him? Like, are there any warnings that you're offering when he goes down this path a little bit?
Well, you know, he's 10, so
it's a little early for that.
It's a little early, yeah. And, you know, we definitely don't want him to be a child actor. So, yeah, he takes this after-school improv class and seems to enjoy it, you know, and
you're putting him in a class early for it, though. You're giving him the scent early, like.
Well, he wanted to do it, you know. It wasn't like something that we were pushing on him, you know. He wanted to, and he has definitely a good sense of humor, and he's creative, you know. He's a little performer, you know.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Holidays on the house at DraftKings Casino. With this season's offerings, you'll unwrap everything on your list. Exclusive games, huge jackpots, and exciting rewards. We're offering a warm welcome to new players with $100 instantly in casino credits with just a $10 wager. Plus, everyone can get in on the action with a holiday reward every week. So, sign up with code DLS because the holiday cheer is here. Only on DraftKings Casino. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problems gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Opt-in required. Casino credits are non-withdrawable and expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos.
Saturday Night Live, you learned what from that experience? It's a broad question, but what would you say that you learned?
I mean, it's fun doing live TV. You don't get to do that hardly ever. It's fun getting to be around those people. You know, it was like an extended college. I don't know. I think I just learned to be better at doing that. You know, I learned to be better at doing scenes, being comfortable in front of an audience and live television. I learned to, maybe more after the fact, to believe in myself more. And I was able to look back and say, hey, I did some pretty good stuff there, you know, and appreciate that. You know, and so on some level, it's like about appreciating myself and what I brought to it, and also just being part of that SNL family.
But it sounds like, the way you're articulating it, it sounds like you learned to love yourself at least a little bit better if somehow you got more confident and escaped some of your insecurities. Like if you felt better about who you were because the identity crushing of everything that happened in the middle of that, and then you get to the end of it and you're a stronger person who feels more confident, you're taking care of yourself better.
Yeah, I think so. It wasn't so clear cut at the time, but
it's more of a suffering at the time, right?
Yeah. In some
insecurity
ways.
is a crippler. Like, well, I don't know how art has healed you here. You'd have to help me there. Because insecurity, a lot of people get into funny and get into acting because they're trying to squeeze light out of insecurities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when it's going well, it's so rewarding. When I shoot a scene, that I feel like my work was good in that, you know, and I brought it acting wise and comedically, if that was what was called for, that's very satisfying. And then to ultimately get to watch it, which can be hard, but to see it and be like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good, you know, or to hear it in a voiceover recording, you know, that's rewarding. And just, you know, it's just fun to be on set with other people, you know, especially comedy people, you know. I have occasionally auditioned for like a procedural, like a CSI kind of thing. And, you know, like, look, I would be very lucky to have a show like that I'm on. But at the same time, it's like, that would not be my first choice. I would much rather do a sitcom, you know, where we're trying to be funny and make the audience laugh, make each other laugh, and not just reciting these cold, hard facts and all of that.
You must have some Alec Baldwin stories for us. Like 30 Rock, I have thought of him as legitimately comedian funny over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Not act like, I know a lot of actors are funny, but he struck me as somebody who could have just been a straight comedian, and just by turning up the volume on who he actually is from 8 to 10.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, well, you know, he had hosted several times while I was on the show, and I knew, and I'd seen him before I got on the show and knew how funny he could be. And then at 30 Rock, what I sort of came to appreciate more about Alec was just what a master craftsman he is. Just how fully aware he is of where the cameras are and what's being shot and how we should shoot it. And
not craftsman, what you just did there.
Not
Amateur,
craftsman-like.
like you were trying to illustrate for us theatrically what the opposite of being a craftsman
Thank
is.
you. I didn't know if you'd pick up on that, Dan, but yes, thank you. I was trying to show this is not what Alec Baldwin would do as I bang the microphone.
But you're saying he's a sculptor, and obviously he's got a lifetime of experiences, but I also think of him as just wildly funny, and it's something that I wouldn't have seen back at Glengarry Glen Ross.
No, yeah. Well, he's not, I don't remember him being like a guy with quips and cut-ups and things like that. I mean, he's kind of, I think a little more like me in some ways, that he's a little more, has this a certain demeanor to him that's not like Mr. Comedy, or anything like that. And then, like you said, when he wants to turn it up, it's there for sure.
I loved how you illustrated Mr. Comedy. Like, that guy's the life of a party. That guy walks in. It sounds like you have a very crafted, some of the ways that you're describing the doing of comedy, I'm not going to say formulaic, but it's like, because that, I really don't mean it that way. I mean, like, you have the tools on how it is that I can do this, and this to make you laugh, because I've perfected the art of cadence, of tone. I can make it song, and I have sharpened something so that I can present it to you in a way that is, I know it's going to work. I know it's going to be funny.
I don't know about that.
No?
No, I don't. You don't ever know it's going to work, I mean, I definitely learned that at SNL. I mean, there was a sketch I co-wrote with some folks, a morning zoo crew sketch, and it killed us, writing it and rehearsing it. We did it at dress rehearsal, and it was crickets. I mean, it was nothing.
And you knew it was going to work, and it didn't work.
Exactly.
I would think that your barometer would be so good at this point, so expert, that you would know that when you think something's funny, it's going to be funny.
No, comedy's too particular, and it's too dependent on what the frame of reference is for each individual and the group that's watching it and what they bring to it. And like, maybe they enjoy morning zoo crews that are wacky and crazy, and they're like, well, what are they making fun of? You never know. I mean, it's so particular with what a person or an audience is going to find funny.
What have you found most fulfilling or rewarding about the work that you do?
Oh, let's see. What's most rewarding is when I feel appreciated, when I feel like the people who are making the project appreciate what I bring to it, and they trust me with it. Like I did this little part in the series Fallout, and it was just an offer, and I was like, wow, okay, because I could tell, these are big, important TV making folks who are involved with this, very respected, and they wanted me to do this part. So I'm like, okay, great. And I didn't get a lot of direction. I just said, this is how I'm thinking of the guy, and they were kind of like, yeah, that's kind of it. And I did it, and I felt good about it, and and I was very happy to get to be a little part of such a cool show. So that was very satisfying,
Is there a lot of fulfillment in the work? Like, is there, when you talk about doing some of the voice work, for example, it seems like it could be a little repetitive, a little lonely, even in the parts that might be funny.
Well, with the voice work, it is about, for me, just trying to just act it well. I know it sounds like obvious in a way, but it's just to like really be present as that character, seeing the scene in my mind's eye, and trying to react to things as that character would and speak the way he would, without falling into the habit of just like doing a vocal dance, and like, this is how it sounds. Now, I definitely try to vary the takes, and bring different things to it, but ideally I'm doing that from the point of view of sort of a different frame of mind of how he would say it, as opposed to just, changing my vocal cadence or pitches and that kind of stuff.
I'm going to thank you for your time. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it on my forehead gathering, but I'm beginning to sweat profusely.
Oh, shit.
I had too much to drink with your friend Adam McKay last night, and it is pouring out now. So on this note, I'm going to say thank you for your time and sink deeply into my shame. You can see how much I'm sweating, right? Everyone can see how much I'm sweating. You can't see how much I'm sweating. I could legitimately do. Should I do this? I don't think that I should do this. It's a lot.
I didn't notice it until you said it.
Okay, well, you're very kind. You're an unusually kind person.
It's true.
Thank you for being on with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan. I really enjoyed it.